Good evening, guys. It is Thursday, March 27th, 2025. This Bathrobe business. I'm Georgi Oganov. I'm all out of decaf coffee, but I still have the news. Last video of the week. We're finishing the week strong. I guess. I don't really know what that means, but it sounded like a cool thing to say. We're finishing the week strong. Tomorrow we are going to get pretty big numbers coming out. PCE data, which is a preferred metric for the Federal Reserve, is supposed to post tomorrow. Let us know what inflation is doing. I'll tell you right now, it's going to be up. There is no question about it. Given all the market trends we're seeing, there's no way that number isn't up and it isn't accelerating. I think everybody will want to go out and blame Donald Trump. And while obviously he has a hand to play with the tariffs, I think this falls squarely on Jerome Powell. This is entirely because of Jerome Powell. It's always been because of Jerome Powell. So obviously, inflation isn't so simple as to just pin on the Federal Reserve. But the Federal Reserve could have done something to intercept this problem. Now, this was always a monetary issue. They printed way too much money during COVID. They stimulated the economy like crazy. Everybody was locked up. There was nowhere to spend it. Then they opened it back up. And then in addition, they had additional stimulus packages. They had the Inflation Reduction Act, which actually just pumped more money into the system, which did the exact opposite of what the Inflation Reduction Act is supposed to do. But through all of it, Jerome Powell sat on his hands and did nothing. And then, worst of all, last year, it looked like he had finally gotten some brain cells and actually decided to do something and started raising the interest rate. But then last year, at the very last second, right before the election, he got pressure from the Biden administration and decided to cut. And he cut a full percentage point off of the prime interest rate. And now we're back to the same problem we were at. And now we're in a situation where he cannot raise because the economy is on shaky ground. So this is going to fall entirely on Jerome Powell. History books may look back on this and try to blame Donald Trump. And while, again, he does have a hand to play because inflation numbers are impacted by tariffs, this is a monetary issue. It's always been a monetary issue. And this is entirely Jerome Powell's fault. So tomorrow, when you see those inflation numbers go up, just shoot a little text to Jerome Powell. Be like, hey, buddy, what you doing? Well, why'd you let this happen? Because it's his fault. Now, let's check in on the gold prices real quick. Gold hit another all-time high. This is forecasting what we're going to be seeing tomorrow. So gold is at 3,081. Let me make sure I'm sharing the screen with you. New all-time high, 3,081. It's just shy of 3,100. Like I said, I think it's going to hit 3,500 before. Well, no, yesterday I was talking about hitting 5,000 before the end of the decade, but I think 3,500 is possible before the end of the year. I do believe I said that in yesterday's video, but I couldn't remember if that was something I was thinking and I didn't mention, but I believe I mentioned it. I think it's going to hit 3,500 before the end of the year, especially with tariffs coming into play. Next story I want to talk about real quick are let's talk about jobless claims. So this one's interesting. So this is a story from Bloomberg that says jobless claims for U.S. federal workers fall back to the end of 2024 levels. So why this is interesting is I thought that maybe I just wasn't as tuned in, or maybe it's become background noise, but it seemed to me like Doge wasn't really doing much during the last couple of weeks. And sure enough, no, the data backs it up. Jobless unemployment claims kind of fell back to where they were in 2024. So in other words, no new federal employees have been laid off. This shouldn't really come as a surprise, seeing as how they passed the budget that pretty much kept all the funding in place that was supposed to be part of the Doge cuts, including funding back to a lot of what USAID did. Despite the fact that that was a major talking point at the beginning of the administration, all the funding still went through. And when what was it? Senator Massey. When Thomas Massey was trying to block it, Donald Trump came out against him. And if you don't know who Thomas Massey is, he's a fantastic senator. He's one of the few people with head on his shoulders in Congress. He tried to block this budget because it is exactly what they said it was. It was nothing but pork spending and all the cuts that were supposed to be made by Doge, but instead we're just going to get funded. Let's not forget the Defense Department's budget once again went up by 6%, whereas we were getting reports that defense was going to be cut by 8% annually for the next 5 years. So it was all a lie. And now again, we're seeing federal jobless claims are back to where they were at the end of 2024. So we're just back to Biden administration levels. Now, it's not that I'm cheering on the firing of federal employees, but I will be the first to say that the federal budget is grossly overblown and grossly over budgeted, and cuts need to be made. We are on the verge of bankruptcy as a country. A friend of mine, shout out to Shane, he doesn't watch this channel. He doesn't know it exists, but I give him credit for it. because he said a very good point today in one of our conversations at work. He said, one way or another, Trump is going to be the last great president because there is no way that at the end of this administration, China doesn't take over. Now, if Trump actually manages to do something, he could be the last great president that kind of held the line and was able to restructure the US before China took over and put it into a better position. Or he could just be the last hurrah before China takes over and becomes king of the world. More and more, I think it's shaping up to be that the Trump administration is just another establishment administration, just like every other. I think the Houthi attacks, the bombing of the Houthi rebels, just underpins that. Let's not forget this is the same exact policy that the Biden administration had, and that this is the same exact policy that the Obama administration had. Now, I try to stay away from politics because I feel like there's plenty of that online. I try to keep it to business, but I don't see how this isn't a business story when you're talking about federal budgets. So Doge has pretty much done nothing. All of the cuts we were promised are not in place, and we're back to the same policies we've always had. So far, we're not at 100 days yet. We're only, I think, about 60 days or so from January 20th to today. Today's the 27th, so a little over 60 days. We're approaching 70. But the first 100 days of the Trump administration are coming in kind of underwhelming. In addition, despite the Maha movement that RFK has promised, a lot of the major moves on the health sector were at state levels. Like I believe it was Virginia or West Virginia that actually outlawed certain food dyes in foods and beverages. That didn't come as a federal mandate. They came from the state level. You could say that it was inspired by federal mandates, but it was entirely a state-funded initiative. So far, I think the Trump administration is really failing. There's been a lot of stuff in the last couple of weeks that show that they're not really turning this economic train around. And in addition, we're getting compounded by tariffs. So, I'm kind of calling it that I think we're going to face a real recession here in 2025. I know I've mentioned it before, but before I could kind of give Trump the benefit of the doubt before a lot of this stuff set in. But currently, I think it's an absolute. We're going to hit a recession at some point this year. The Fed is probably going to cut because that's their only lever, but that's also bad because it's going to spur on inflation. So we're in a real pickle. I don't think it's going to get better. Next story I want to cover is another one that shows economic prognosis for this year. So CoreWeave, which is a company that works with NVIDIA to train AI models, was set to IPO. It is still set to IPO for Friday. But what's interesting is how much they've reduced their stock price. So estimates were that they were going to price their stock between $47 and $55, but their price is now set at $40. That's very interesting because you're talking about an AI company. You're talking about a Silicon Valley company that for the first time that I can remember in recent history has set a price point lower than what the market had estimated. That gives you an idea of how bad the market actually is. A stock like this just a year ago would have been not 55, they would have come in at 75. And when they opened, they would have hit 100. But now we're coming in below market expectations. And I'm sure it's going to be an appropriate market performance when they actually debut. But it is just kind of staggering to see how much of a regress that Silicon Valley and AI has had. I think this is not only because of the U.S. economy, but also largely because of what has happened with DeepSeek and the advances that China is making with AI. So another kind of check mark in the argument of there is going to be a major maybe not major, but there's going to be a recession in 2025. Last story I'm going to talk about. This is close to home, so this one hurts. So the Sundance Film Festival. I'm sorry, this Sundance Film Festival. I think I'm saying that right. The Sundance Film Festival. No, Sundance Film Festival. I already forgot their name. They are leaving Utah, so fuck them very much. The Sundance Film Festival is now departing Utah for Boulder, Colorado. Now, for those that don't know, and I think everyone has heard of the Sundance Film Festival, is a major festival that was founded here in Utah. Founded by Robert Redford, I believe in the late 70s. And it's two parts. There's the Sundance Institute, but the Sundance Film Festival is the star-studded event every year, end of January, beginning of February, where everybody flocks to Park City, where there's a major festival, there's parties, there's blah, blah, blah. Good times are had by all. But for the first time in the entire history of the festival, they've decided to relocate and move to Podunk, Boulder, Colorado. Now, the reason given is some sort of corporate speak of we feel that Boulder aligns better with our blah, blah, blah. The real reason is tax incentives. They're moving there because Boulder, Colorado offered them better tax incentive than the state of Utah was doing. And so they sold out for that. I think it's a terrible move because every year it brought at least about $108 million into the local economy. It obviously helped a lot of people, especially in the service industry. I think it's a major blow to Utah, but I think they're actually hurting themselves greatly with this maneuver as well. Let's call a spade a spade. The film industry is shit right now. Nobody cares about films. Superhero movies are opening to empty audiences. Nobody gave a shit about the Oscars. Nobody's watching these movies with the same accolades and same kind of excitement they did even just a couple years ago. Every year, the Oscars are coming in with lower and lower ratings. More and more celebrities are despised in the culture. Right now, the film industry is in very, very dire straits, especially with so many more alternatives out there. There are streaming services, there are podcasts, there are YouTube channels, there are audio programs that are essentially kind of a throwback to mystery radio from like our great grandparents' generation. There are so many new alternatives, not to mention social media applications that occupy much of our time, that the film industry is not in a great place. And the Sundance Film Festival was always a very powerful draw, not just for Utah, but for the festival itself, because people would flock to Park City because it was such a ski resort money-making place. So celebrities liked coming to Park City because it was a great place where they could debut their movie, they could go to bars, they could go to restaurants, they could hit the slopes. It was a very recreational area. Boulder, Colorado doesn't have that. Boulder, Colorado is mostly a college town. College towns don't have that kind of money. So with this maneuver, they may be saving on taxes, but their festival is going to suffer. There is no question that they are kind of signing their own death certificate. I'm not saying that this is going to go out tomorrow or even a couple of years from now, but 10 years from now, the Sundance Film Festival is going to look back on this and see that it was a major mistake to leave Utah because they are going to be losing on tons of money in revenue. Here, they were established, they had flow, they had draw, but they're not going to have that in Boulder. It's going to be a major, major blow to them. As Trump would say, they're such failures, failing Sundance Film Festival. They're leaving Utah, they're going to fail. And I think it's absolutely true. I 100% stand by that point. I think it's a terrible, terrible maneuver. And for anyone that's watching, hey, if you can start Sundance Film Festival 2, Electric Boogaloo, I think there's a great market. You could just capitalize on what's already here. So if there is any filmmakers in Utah, any filmmakers abroad want to come to Salt Lake City or to Park City for the Sundance Film Festival replacement, I think you've got a great market to work with. That's pretty much it. We'll see what the PCE data is tomorrow. I won't see you guys back here until Monday, but I hope you have a productive Friday and a fantastic weekend. Bye.